CWPA Remote.
So Antonio Merlo, thank you very much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
First, I mean, you have a very decorated background, so just talk a little bit about your background, but specifically just being born and raised in Italy. How does Italian water polo match up to what you've seen in the United States? And how do you adjust as an international student to the American college system?
Yeah, so it's thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. And so let me start. I was born and raised in a small town outside of Milan, Legnano, and I'm a first generation college graduate. So I was navigating both the academic side and as you probably know, in Italy, sports and school don't go hand in hand with each other.
Right.
There is no university level competition, and all sports, including water polo, it's something that you do on the side. And so, water polo was my passion. From when I was, fairly young. I started playing at the age of 12, and I played through college before coming, to the United States for my doctoral studies. I would say I'm fortunate because, Italy being one of the powerhouses of water polo really gave me a chance of developing as a player, but really learning and understanding the sport, through the entire development, rule changes, and all the various steps. And I must say, one of the wonderful things that have happened to this sport in the United States is how much it has grown and how much it has narrowed the gap, between the historic powerhouses of the sport, right? I mean, Italy, Spain, Russia, former Yugoslavia, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so, I've been in the United States since 1988, which is again when I came for my my doctoral degree, and water polo is one of the sports that you remain attached to. I mean, it's such a phenomenally tight-knitted community. And again, back to your question, is really the experience that I had from Italy coming over to the United States, and then being able to just bring with me the experience that I had, the way it's played in Europe, but really integrating it with the with the direction of the sport in the United States has been wonderful to watch and be a part of.
Absolutely.
Ever since I've been here.
Absolutely. And I mean, just speaking about some of your coaching experience while you're here, from 2008 to 2014, you were the head coach of the men's water polo team at the University of Pennsylvania, not too far away from where the CWPA is at. You led the Penn Quakers to 3 championship titles in the Mid-Atlantic division of the CWPA in 2008, 2010, 2013, and the 2013 Ivy League Collegiate Club Championship. So you had some good success during those years. And you had a 5th place finish at the National Collegiate Club Championship in 2013 as well. So can you talk about your time a little bit at Penn as a coach, and what are your best memories there?
Absolutely. So first of all, let me tell you, it's one of those interesting things that happened. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania in 2000. I'm a professor of economics.
Right.
That's my background. That's my discipline. But I wanted to stay connected with the sport, and so I was getting in the water, helping out with the team, and so on and so forth. And then in 2008, the coach Chris Lee, by the way, who's done phenomenal work as a coach, with the women's national team and the like. But so Chris left the University of Pennsylvania, and I remember the team, coming to me and said, we know you're busy, we know you have a lot of things to do, but would you help us out? And don't worry about it. It's going to be like one of those temporary things until we find a coach.
Right.
And then next thing I became head coach, between 2008 and 2014. And those that I say, in terms of my water polo experience, those have been phenomenal, extraordinary years. They went from, as you know very well, the reality of club sports is very different, right? Than the reality of when you can, go and recruit. And so the joy of, really building a team that is done not just by one particular cohort of students, but these overlapping cohorts of students who come, they play for a while and then they leave. But the one amazing thing is that whatever they do to contribute to the building up of that team stays with the team.
Right.
And so really throughout this great period between 2008 and 2014, which is when I left Penn to move to Rice University, it was just a phenomenal development that you saw, and really culminated in the 2013 season, which was absolutely an epical,
right.
one of those things that that I'm always going to remember. I must say the fifth place finish at National in 2013 was just the cherry on top of it. This was a team that essentially lost one game the entire year, and that was the quarterfinal against Cal, right, which took us out of the top four, and then we played for the second bracket. The memories are really the student athletes I had the privilege of working with. And one thing that I was really blessed, I had the chance of interacting with so many wonderful people, great student, phenomenally dedicated water polo players. But really what developed was a team, especially the 2013 team, that was so strong and so cohesive, and deep friendships were formed in the water. And I might say, one of the things that you learn to do as a coach when you're coaching club teams is that you don't have a set way where you play. It's not that, you're just saying, I'm sorry, unless I have, these type of players, I'm not going to play. You learn to adjust based on what you have. And so, the great memories were really to, sometimes it's just something that happens during a practice when you finally see something that, we turned the corner, and then something that was sort of like a foreign concept all of a sudden becomes second nature. And then the team comes together. Those are the beautiful memories that, I'm always gonna, take with me. And again, it was such a spectacular, opportunity that I had to work with so many wonderful athletes.
And you actually followed up your time. You touched on it a little bit. You followed up your time at Penn by going down to Rice. So you held a unique spot down at Rice. You were the head coach of the men's and the women's water polo teams at Rice University. So as the head coach in two divisions, how do you compare play in the two? And if you could just talk about the transitioning from Penn to Rice.
Yeah. So it was a tough transition, right? Because I left after having a team that managed to go to national, finish fifth, that really had built a phenomenal structure. But that's what happened with work, right? I mean, I had a phenomenal opportunity of becoming dean of the School of Social Sciences, which again, once I transitioned in my career from being purely a scholar and an academic to an academic administrator, those are the type of of phenomenal opportunities one has. And so again, in a very similar fashion, I end up in Texas at Rice University, that historically didn't really have a strong tradition in water polo. But again, there was a strong desire. It's a fairly small school and university. But, there was a lot of desire to really, build up a program and really give a chance to players to learn and learn to play the game. And this is interesting because, this is in contrast to the phenomenal tradition in the Texas division. In fact, I must say, going back to my Penn days, one of the hardest games that we played in the 2013 National Collegiate Championship was against UT, one of the, phenomenal, franchises of all times. I mean, if I can use the term franchise in, for club sports. And so, Texas has a tremendous history of strength in the sport with both, Texas A&M and UT Austin. And so that was a great opportunity of building a program from the ground up, and literally say, look, we're going to start, we're going to lose a lot of games. We're going to, just get going. But the great things is that because we play with teams that are so far ahead of us and so great, and, we have so much to learn, I must say it was, phenomenally rewarding when I believe it was 2018, the men's team ended up, finishing third behind UT and Texas A&M, and UT beat us in overtime. So, I mean, this is a team that, back in the days was, a team that was not, winning a single game throughout the division, that really started to build in this culture of being competitive, working hard, really building. It's back to what I said about Penn. It takes a long time to build a winning program. And
Right.
It doesn't matter that, your best players are leaving, but the point is they leave something behind. And so this is really a multi-year process that takes place. And then the novelty was for me to get involved with the women's programs as well. Whereas at Penn, I was only, coaching the men's team. And again, that was a great way of, really promoting a sport that so desperately need to have more female athletes to get involved. And then, of course, that's one example where the United States has been leading the pack, right? As opposed to on the men's side, where it took quite a while for the men's team to catch up to the other countries. Whereas, on the women's side, we have such a strength. And again, that was a wonderful opportunity to working with some, phenomenal student athletes. I'm very fond of every single player I've ever had, throughout my experience as a coach. But again, the adjustment was a great opportunity of saying, look, you don't start a coaching year where you sit down with your team and say, our goal is to go to nationals, right? You sit down with the team and you said, our goal is to start, learning how we win games, learning, how do we play cohesively? How do we, build consistency? And so again, that was a quite different experience, but as rewarding as the one I had at Penn.
And you've had success wherever you've been, and you've been recognized for it with the 2013, 2017, and 2018 Coach of the Year awards in the CWPA men's Mid-Atlantic division, the women's Texas division, and men's Texas division. So what do you credit your success to, and what advice would you give coaches to achieve similar success?
Well, so the number one, what I credit my success to is really the wonderful players that I had the pleasure of working with. And also, the spirit that as the coach, you're not the star. The stars are your players, right? The job of a coach is really to encourage, allow players to develop, help the team bond, develop this strong sense of cohesion. And my philosophy has always been that, I'm whenever I show up, it doesn't matter that, I've seen water polo since I was 12 years old. My approach with my team is, I'm here to just, share my knowledge with you, but really help you, learn and grow and thrive. And ultimately, we all win and lose games together, but, I'm the one sitting, down on the bench. And unless there is this, magic that happens where, the team really comes together and gets to do the things that we work hard to do. So again, I think that my success is really based on a philosophy of, you work hard, you really win, games and successes and all every day. When you practice, right? The late night swim sessions that nobody wants to do, the sacrifices that the students need to do. And again, it's important that you have a coach that is there and just says, look, it's hard for everybody, right? Especially these are very ambitious students who, go into, these great universities because, they really want to get ready for the rest of their lives. They're committed to do water polo, but they're doing sacrifices to do so. It's important for them to hear that you have a coach who's also doing these sacrifices, shows up at every practice, is really there to help you. And really the best part is just seeing these magic moments where everything comes together and the light bulb goes on. So again, I was obviously delighted to be recognized by the CWPA, but it all really boils down to the wonderful student athletes that one works with.
And now just moving on, just briefly, we're going to talk actually about your profession, because I'm going to just bear with me for a second. I have a nice long list here I want to read off. So you're among one of the most prominent economics professors in the American education system. You're a professor at the University of Minnesota at NYU before assuming the prestigious position of Lawrence R. Klein Chair of Economics and the directorship of the Penn Institute for Economic Research in the world-renowned Wharton Business School at Penn. By the way, I went to Temple University, so I won't hold it against you. because we both don't like Nova that much, so we're on the same team there. You served as head coach or head of the economics department at Rice before returning to NYU in your current job of dean of the Faculty of Arts and Science. So, due to your knowledge, give your impression of the economic environment that we're going to be seeing over the next 12 months, if we can get serious just for a moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, thank you. It's, this is one of, it's been my passion since, I fresh out of high school, I was, deciding what to do with my life, and economics always really spoke to me as a field where I really wanted to get, involved in serious and get into academia. The reality of it is, we are living through unprecedented times because, as an economy, and I'm not even just talking about the United States economy, but as a global economy, we've been through recessions, we've been through depressions, but the origins of those events were typically something that we can, conduct back to the economy itself. And so, we had sort of like a roadmap on understanding what are the type of things that you need to do. I mean, the current crisis, unfortunately, being tragic and having led to so many, losses of lives. And, because it's a health crisis in nature, it has put the economy in sort of like an unprecedented holding pattern where, so many people are losing their jobs, not because there is some, fundamental, issue with the economy itself, but it's just because, everybody's is on pause, demand dropped down, the very engine of the economy is sort of like, put on this idle cycle. And so the point is, unfortunately, nobody knows how long this is going to persist or how deep the crisis is going to be. But here is the good news. I mean, the good news is, again, unlike a crisis where the origin is economic in nature, where you first need to fix the system before you can put people to work, here is a situation where we have the people ready to, go back to work whenever we can do that. And then, of course, we'll have to adjust. And, every time that there is a crisis, there is always the opportunity of figuring out how we can do things better. Right? Economists always talk about the cleansing effect of recessions. That in some sense, where everything is going great, you have a lot of, marginal activities and businesses and the like that still operate. A recession forces the hard questions of, how can we best deploy the resources we have in the most productive way so that the economy can really, continue to thrive. So, this is something that, us as economists, us as academics, but, really every single person, who's monitoring the situation is, rightly concerned. But at the same time, there has to be some, really deep hope for the future, because we know that once the health crisis is over, the economy is inherently and intrinsically healthy. And so, we do expect that this, the system to go back and us, especially the United States as a country, being so prominent and be so, prime for, regaining, all the momentum that was lost because of this crisis.
And now, just going back a little bit to just a little bit of advice here. So what advice would you give to a student, both international and American, looking to play in the collegiate club ranks?
So number one is, I know that there are a lot of students, especially international students, who are thinking, if I leave my country and I come to the US, the only way to play high-level water polo would be to go varsity. And I would say the advice I would give to student athletes, especially international, is that's not the case. I mean, both you and I know that the level of competition, for example, in the National Collegiate Club Championship is, remarkable, right? I mean, is one Absolutely. Would say that, you can watch a lot of, varsity games and then, watch those games, and it would be hard to say, which one is which. And so, right. One word of advice to international students who have the chance of coming over to the United States to play, if you have an opportunity of going to a great program, regardless of whether it's a club or varsity, they should really considering it. And then in general, an advice I give to everybody is also stick with the sport. I mean, I think that water polo is a great metaphor for life. I mean, certainly I go back to my days and all the people that I played with, I work with, all the sacrifices. First of all, it's a great place where you flex your leadership muscles. I mean, people always, obviously there is the physical aspect about, it's a great sport, you can really, stay healthy and engaged, but, it's a great opportunity also of taking on leadership roles, right? Every time you have a team, every time that, you need to step in and really help out. But also, again, water polo is a great game where you learn the discipline, right? I mean, it's as you know, it's a great sport where it doesn't really matter if you play offense or defense. If people don't play together, you're not gonna win, and your team is not gonna succeed. And so you really learn this, concept of working hard, working together, building team spirit. So the main word of advisor to all, the advice to all students, regardless of whether they're international or domestic, is if you have played water polo in high school, stick with it through college. If you have an opportunity of playing, even if it's at the club level, take it seriously. Just give it your all. There are phenomenal opportunities of really staying involved with the sport, continuing to grow as an athlete through this wonderful sport of water polo. Obviously, once we come to the varsity versus club, obviously there are students who can't afford to go to college, and the only way they could go to college is if they get a scholarship to play sports. And then, of course, at that point, who am I to say, no, you should forego that opportunity, to go play, for fun or, at the club level in another place. But I would say, especially now with the phenomenal growth of our sport, with so many universities starting, programs, we want to continue to encourage all young people to get into the sport. And by the way, even people who have never played in high school, who can transition, and start learning the sport. Certainly at Rice University, I had my fair share of players who were swimmers that never, played water polo until, they come to college, and they've developed into phenomenal athletes. So my advice to the young people is really stay with the sport, enjoy it. It's such a phenomenal opportunity.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Antonio Merlo, thank you very much. I mean, just first of all, it's great advice for all the student athletes out there. Now, just one more thing I got to ask you. I'm doing this to all the coaches that I interview. Just something for the kids to do at home during this time, a stretch, an exercise, an activity. Do you have any little secrets that you can share with them?
Yeah. So for me, one of the most important things has always been the familiarity with the ball. Right. So I very much hope that every water polo player like me, I mean, I have my own collection of, water polo balls, but just having something that you constantly have in your hands, bouncing against the wall, doing exercises with it. Because I think that one of the things you don't want to do now that we cannot be in a swimming pool is lose your familiarity with handling a ball in everything that you do. And so that's actually one thing that I always, whenever you do, dry land training for a water polo player, because, handling the ball is such an important part of everything that we do in the water, I would strongly encourage to do exercises that entail, really taking advantage of that. So I know it's hard. It's hard to, stay in shape while you're at home, but, I really encourage all those great water polo athletes out there to continue doing it.
Thank you very much, Antonio Merlo. Thank you very much. Stay safe during this time, and we'll speak to you soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, and same to you. Okay.
Thank you.